Hey everyone, I had a couple of students ask me for assistance with GitHub, so I'm making this video to assist you guys with that. So remember, GitHub is a place that can store files online. Okay, we're going to use GitHub as a server. There are other places to get servers, but GitHub is free, hence that's why we're using GitHub. So I'm at their website, which is github.com. And just like everything else in the world, you're gonna have to create an account, okay? So you have to sign up if you haven't already made one. You'll need a username, an email, and then setting up a password, okay? When you sign up, it'll send a verification email to your email, so make sure you look for that. It may be in your spam, so check spam filters and things like that. I'm gonna sign in because I already have one. All right, so this is my particular GitHub. I already have a lot of stuff in it because I use it on a fairly regular basis. Yours will probably be empty. So what you're gonna do is create a new repository. Okay, there's this big old green button on mine. Yours might be on the right, depending on the situation. I'm gonna create a new repository. A repository is just a fancy term for like a folder. It's gonna store our files in it, okay? And you can call a repository anything you want, but we actually need to call it something specific, okay, for this class. We're gonna make what's called a server repository. And a server repository is a repository or a folder that we can share with everyone, okay? So every GitHub account gets one server repository. And you need to call it whatever your username is. .github.io, okay? It's very important that you call it this. If you call it something even slightly different, it will not work, okay? So how do we do that? Well, I'm gonna go here and my username is David Hurwich. Yours will be whatever yours is. So mine would be my username, which is David Hurwich, then .github.io. Okay, now on mine, it's already telling me I have one. Yours will have a little green one that looks like this, saying it's okay to make one. So make sure, notice how this matches this exactly. Also notice I added this. I didn't put any capitals. I have the right number of periods and everything like that. So make sure you look at that, okay? If you need to pause the video or whatever, make sure you do that. Don't just do this too. I've sometimes seen students do this. That's not going to work. This is the account name, okay? It's not a folder, okay? So make sure you give it a name like this. All right. Next, if you want to, you don't require to, you should have a description. Remember that GitHub is usually meant for sharing with other people, so usually you want to tell other people what kind of files are in this folder. And then you can decide whether they are public or private folder. Public means obviously anyone can access it. Private means only specific people can access it. For your server, you actually have to make it so that everyone can access it. Because if you think about what the internet is files that everyone around the world can access. If you go to Amazon, everyone can access Amazon's files, right? Or anyone can access Google's files, or at least, their Google search files, right? So they have to be in a public folder. So you have to make sure this is set to public, okay? Then you'd go down here. You don't have to do this part. Don't worry about the README right now. We're not gonna worry about that. And then you would have a big shiny button here that says create repository. I don't, because I already have one with this name, but see how mine, would have that. All right, so let's pretend I already made mine. This is my server repository. I already have actually a lot of files in it. So we're gonna test this out. So I'm gonna make a file really quickly in brackets, and I'm gonna call this, I'm gonna save this file. I'm gonna put it on my desktop for now, and I'm gonna call it example.html. And I'll say this is an example, okay? And what we're gonna do now is I need to get that file that I just created, it's right here on my computer. I need to get this to GitHub, my GitHub account. Okay, and to do that, we're going to use a piece of software. It's a free piece of software. It's called GitHub Desktop Application. You can go to GitHub Desktop App. I'm just going to type it literally into, Google, and it should come right up. Okay, there it is, desktop.github.com. It is a cross-platform program, so that means it works both for Mac and PC. Okay, and it's, download it, install it the way you would any application, and then I'm going to load mine. Now, the first time you open it up, it's probably going to ask you to sign in. Okay, I have not signed in because I've already signed in, but if it doesn't ask you to sign in, you may have to go to preferences. And the main thing is that you have to log into your actual github.com account, okay? So whatever you use for your GitHub account as your login, that's the same for the login for the application, okay? So yours is probably gonna look something like this, give or take. And then what I want to do is we want to clone this repository onto my computer here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is go to File and then Clone. And I'm gonna find my username.github.io repository. And under local path, which means where you cloning it to your computer, I'm gonna hit choose, and I'm just gonna put it on my desktop, okay? I'm actually already cloned it once, and I actually have a lot of files in mine, so I'm not gonna clone it again because that will take a couple of minutes. But when you clone it, it's gonna copy all of the files that are on your online github.io account and put them onto your computer. Now, for you guys, if you've never used it before, you're gonna have 0 files, but I actually have a bunch, and that's why it would take a while, so I'm not gonna do that. But what you're gonna end up as a result is a folder with your username.github.io. Okay, and so this is a clone folder. I like to think of it as a sync folder, which means whatever I put into this folder eventually is gonna go back to here, okay? So think of this as like a tunnel almost. It's like whatever I put into here magically is gonna appear, it's gonna go through the magical tunnel that is the internet and then arrive over here, okay? So I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna drop it into my folder. I can open it up and take a look. There it is. And you can see my file, example.html. And so now that I've done that, I'm gonna go back to my GitHub desktop app. And you're gonna see it says, up here at the top, it says changes. So a change is anytime I make a change to that, that clone folder. That could mean adding a file, it could mean subtracting a file. It could mean if I took this HTML file and I changed it, I added code to it, or I subtracted code to it, whatever. Anything like that is considered a change, okay? And anytime you make a change to your file, if you want to update it back to your GitHub account, you're gonna have to add what's called a commit. Okay, so a commit is basically like saying, like, I approve these changes, essentially. Like, you're a project manager and they're like, do you approve these changes? And you're like, yes, I approve them. So the way that we do that is we go to the bottom here. This is where we're gonna commit. And every commit needs a subject heading and then a description, okay? So I made a change of adding this file called example.html, so I might say something like added file. And then that's kind of like the short title, kind of like what you put on a subject line for an email. And then the description is like a little bit more information. And the reason why we do this is you got to understand that most of the time with GitHub, you're sharing files with other people, like a project, if you were working on an app or a website or something like that. And if you go around making changes to files and not telling anyone, people are going to get annoyed with you. So it's always good when you change files to explain what are these files, what are these changes. So I'm going to say something like, added example.html, and maybe I'll put in the date, added, date added, April 2nd, okay? And so this is just information for other people in this imaginary group that I'm in. I don't have anyone, but let's pretend I did. And then I'm going to hit set commit to master. And then now that I've committed it, I need to send the files back to github.com. So the way that you do that is you can go here. Mine says push. It may say sync too. Those are basically the same things. And I want to push. If you're not getting this button, you can also go to repository, push. Either one does the same thing. It's going to push or basically upload the file back to github.com. You know, depending on the size of the file, it may take a minute or two. So now my file's on GitHub a bit updated. The way you check this is you can refresh, and then you should see the file. There it is. So once you see the file here, that means it's been uploaded. That also means that it's now public. When a file is public, sometimes referred to as live, developers like to say, the files are live. That just basically means they're available to everyone online, okay? And so for people to access these files, we need a URL, okay? And with GitHub, you already have a built-in URL, and that is your username.github.io/ and then the file name, all right? So for instance, that file was called example.html. Mine would be David Hurwich, because that's my username, .github.io/ the name of the file was example.html. It helps not to have spaces, so I really recommend when you name files and folders, please don't have spaces. It really causes a lot of issues. I'd recommend using hyphens, so instead of like my file with a space, you'd write my hyphen file or my underscore file, something like that can help out. Or you can do what's called camel style, where it's all one word, but if you have multiple words in the file name, you capitalize the word. This is called camel style within programming. And so I'm gonna just take this, copy it, and I'm gonna go to a URL, or sorry, I'm gonna open up a new tab here, paste this into my URL, into my address bar at the top, and then hopefully this works. Sometimes when you upload files to GitHub, it does take a minute or two, you know what I mean? GitHub is not the fastest in terms of making files live, but you know, hopefully this will work. All right, guys, so just to let you guys know, I did pause this video for a couple minutes just because GitHub was being a bit slow. So I'm just gonna take this, put it into a new tab, go to my address bar and paste that in. And there you go, that's my file. So when you guys submit your projects, you know, you will give me that URL. Someone asked me before, what happens, you know, if I have multiple projects? And the answer is going to be, well, you'd make a subfolder. So for instance, this, you know, I could put my file into a folder called, what was it called? Toy Store. And it could be, you know, github.io/toy store/ you know, example, or whatever the name of the file is. Okay. All right, guys, hope this helped out. And if you have any questions, you know, you can ask me during class. Thanks.